I was standing in a hidden pine cabin off Route 17, stirring my mother-in-law's chicken stew in her dented green pot, when my wife opened the door with another man's keys in her hand. For 1 second, Mara smiled like she had walked into a secret that still belonged to her. Then she saw me. Then she saw her mother. Then she saw the casserole dish sitting on the counter, the one she had been using for months like a prop in a play. Diane sat at the little round table with her blue pill organizer beside Vera Pike's folder. Her face was pale, but her back was straight. On my phone, the real cabin owner was listening on speakerphone from 3 states away. Mara's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Diane looked at her daughter and said, very softly, "Don't tell me I was sick this weekend. I'm right here." That was the moment Mara's whole story stopped breathing. But it didn't start in that cabin. It started with a sentence I had heard so many times that I stopped questioning it. "Mom had a rough night. I'm staying till Sunday." The first time Mara said it, I believed her without blinking. Diane really had been sick. A mini-stroke had hit her hard that winter, not enough to take her life, but enough to scare all of us into softer voices and careful steps. She lived near Cedar Lake in a small white house with green shutters, the kind of place that smelled like lemon cleaner, old church bulletins, and soup that had been stretched into 2 extra meals. Diane had been a church secretary for almost 30 years. Even after she retired, people still called her when they needed the number for the funeral committee or the woman who made the best peach cobbler. She was not helpless. But she was proud in that quiet way older women get when they have spent their whole lives being useful. Asking for help hurt her more than the stroke did. So when Mara started spending weekends at Diane's house, I thought it was the right thing. Mara was good at making it look right. She was a fundraiser for a children's arts nonprofit, and she knew how to say the exact words that made people soften. She could turn exhaustion into grace. She could turn a small sacrifice into something that made strangers touch her arm and say, "Your mother is so lucky to have you." Every other Friday she packed the same canvas bag. Sweater. Toiletry pouch. Book she never seemed to finish. Phone charger. And always, a casserole dish. Sometimes pasta. Sometimes chicken rice. Once, sweet potato bake with pecans on top, because Diane had mentioned she missed Thanksgiving food. Mara would stand by the door, rubbing her forehead like she had already been carrying too much. "I hate leaving you alone all weekend," she would say. I would kiss her cheek and tell her, "Your mom needs you." She would look down, like she was touched by that, and whisper, "Thank you for understanding." That was the worst part. I did understand. I'm a claims adjuster. My job is built around people in bad situations. Fires, burst pipes, cars folded up like paper, families standing in driveways while smoke still curls from the roof. I had trained myself not to rush judgment. People panic. People forget details. People tell stories in strange ways when they're scared. So I gave Mara room. Too much room. The first crack came on a Thursday afternoon. I was at work, sitting in my truck outside a body shop, reviewing photos of a flooded basement on my tablet, when Diane called me. That alone made me sit up. Diane rarely called me during the day. She was from the generation that still believed phone calls should have a reason, and bad news should be delivered sitting down. I answered, "Hey Diane, everything okay?" For a moment, all I heard was pharmacy noise. A scanner beeped, someone coughed, a cart squeaked over tile. Then she said, "I'm sorry to bother you, Aaron." Her voice was small. That scared me more than panic would have. "What happened?" "I'm at Wallace Pharmacy. They said nobody picked up my blood pressure refill." I frowned. "Mara said she picked that up yesterday." There was a pause. "She did?" "Yeah. She told me she was already at your place this morning." Diane didn't answer. I could picture her standing under those harsh lights, one hand on the counter, trying to make sense of being forgotten without accusing anybody of forgetting her. I said, "Stay there, I'll call Mara." I called my wife. No answer. I called again. No answer. Then a text came in. "Mom's resting. Bad morning. I'll call later." I stared at the message. The words were normal. That was what made them feel wrong. I put Diane on speaker and said, "Diane, are you resting?" She gave one tiny laugh. It broke in the middle. "No, honey, I'm standing by the cough drops." I drove there so fast I don't remember the traffic lights. When I pulled into the pharmacy lot, Diane was sitting on the bench near the entrance with her purse in her lap and her pill bottle in a paper bag. She looked embarrassed, like her own daughter's lie was something she had done wrong. I walked her to my truck. She kept saying, "Maybe Mara got mixed up. She's busy." But she didn't sound convinced. I drove to Diane's house. The porch light was off. 3 wet newspapers sat at the edge of the steps, swollen from rain. The mailbox was stuffed so full the little metal door hung open. One envelope had slipped out and stuck to the damp grass. Diane saw it and pressed her lips together. Inside, the house had that untouched feel, not dirty, not neglected exactly, just still. Too still. The Afghan on the couch was folded the same way it had been 2 weeks earlier. The kitchen trash was empty. The little ceramic hen beside the stove had a fine line of dust along its back. I opened the fridge. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe the silence. Maybe the pharmacy lights still buzzing in my skull. The casserole dish Mara had supposedly delivered 2 weeks ago was sitting on the middle shelf, wrapped in foil, unopened. Diane came up behind me and looked at it. Her hand went to the counter. "That's the one she brought after my appointment," I said. Diane shook her head. "She didn't bring it here." I pulled back the foil. The food underneath had that sour, trapped smell of something that had been forgotten, while everyone pretended it was love. Diane whispered, "She told me you didn't want me calling." I turned. "What?" Her eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. "She said you were tired of all this, tired of me needing things. She said I was putting stress on your marriage." It felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed one rib at a time. I said, "Diane, I never said that." She looked down at her hands. "She said you thought maybe it was time I considered a facility." I couldn't speak. Mara had been telling me she was giving up weekends to care for her sick mother, but she had been telling her sick mother that I wanted her put away. Diane walked slowly to the kitchen table and sat down. From beside the fruit bowl, she picked up her blue pill organizer and rubbed the edge with her thumb. "She made me apologize for needing her," she said. That was when I stopped feeling confused and started feeling cold. Not angry yet. Cold. A claims adjuster learns the difference between damage and cause. The damage was sitting at Diane's kitchen table with shaking hands. The cause was still texting me from somewhere else, pretending to be beside her. I showed Diane Mara's messages. "Mom had another rough night. Doctor wants her calm. She's embarrassed, so please don't call too much." Diane read each one slowly. Her face changed with every line. Not bigger, smaller. Like each lie took up space in the room and pushed her out of it. Then Diane unlocked her phone and showed me Mara's messages to her. "Aaron's overwhelmed. Please don't make this harder. He thinks you're manipulating me. He said weekends are supposed to be for us." The room blurred around the edges. I had seen false statements before. People changed a time, hid a detail, claimed a dent came from hail when the weather report said clear skies. But this was different. This was personal paperwork written in cruelty. We sat at Diane's table and compared dates. Every rough night Mara had used lined up with a weekend Diane had been alone. Not once. Not twice. Over and over. The pattern sat between us like a third person. Diane reached for a notebook from the drawer. Her old church secretary habits came back fast. She wrote dates in neat columns. She added notes. Pharmacy. Missed refill. No visit. Bad morning text. No call. Then she stopped. "There was a man," she said. I looked up. "What man?" "I don't know him. Owen something." She said his name once, months ago. My stomach tightened. "Owen?" Diane nodded. "She was upset with you that week. Said you didn't listen. Said Owen was someone who actually did." I knew the name. I had seen it flash across Mara's phone at dinner. "Owen Pike? No, not Pike. Owen Barlow." She had turned the screen over so fast I almost laughed at the time. I had wanted to be the kind of husband who didn't act suspicious over a phone. Now I wished I had looked harder. I stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "I'm going to ask her." Diane grabbed my wrist. "Not hard. Just enough." "No." I looked at her. Her voice was still weak, but her eyes were not. "If she can do this with my medicine and my name, she can lie faster than you can question her." I hated that she was right. Because that was my world, too. When someone knows the investigation has started, the story changes, receipts disappear, phones reset. A witness suddenly remembers things differently. The truth doesn't vanish, but it gets harder to reach. So I sat back down. And for the first time since I married Mara, I decided not to give her the next move. Diane hired Vera Pike herself. I offered to call somebody. I offered to pay. Diane said no. "She used my sickness," she told me. "I want proof with my name on it." Vera Pike arrived 2 days later in an old gray Subaru with a cracked bumper sticker that said, "Read banned books." She was in her 50s, plain-faced, sharp-eyed, and dressed like someone who had never once cared whether a room liked her. She carried a flip notebook, a brown folder, and a pen with teeth marks on the cap. No dramatic entrance, no big speech. She sat at Diane's table and listened. That was what made her scary. Mara always filled silence. Vera let it do work. She asked for texts, dates, photos, refill records, Mara's work schedule, my work schedule, Diane's doctor appointments, any shared accounts, any names that repeated. When Diane brought the casserole dish from the fridge, Vera looked at it like it was a witness. "Don't throw this out," she said. I almost smiled. "It's spoiled." "Good," Vera replied. "Spoiled things tell time." Before she left, Vera stood in Diane's doorway and looked at both of us. "Do not warn her. Do not test her. Do not ask questions you already know she'll lie about." Diane nodded. I did too. That weekend, Mara kissed me in the hallway with her canvas bag on her shoulder. "Mom's anxious today," she said. "I might not answer much." I looked at her face. Same soft eyes. Same tired smile. Same woman I had loved. I wanted to ask how she could say Diane's name without choking on it. Instead, I took her bag from her hand. "Need help loading the car?" She smiled with relief. "That would be great." The casserole dish was on the counter, covered in foil, still warm. I carried it to her passenger seat. She watched me buckle it in like it mattered. "Drive safe," I said. Mara touched my cheek. "You're a good man." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was the kind of sentence a person says when they think goodness means blindness. 6 days later, Vera called us to Diane's house. Not texted. Called. Her voice was calm. I found the place. Diane sat before I did. Vera opened the folder. The first photo showed Mara's car parked near a line of pine trees. The second showed Owen's truck. The third showed a turnoff behind the old bait shop near Cedar Lake, the one with the faded worm sign and boarded windows. The fourth photo showed Mara walking toward a small cabin with her canvas bag over her shoulder. The fifth showed the casserole dish. Still in the car. Diane stared at that photo for a long time. Longer than she looked at the cabin. Longer than she looked at Owen's truck. That dish had become the whole lie in one object. Food she did not cook for love. Food she did not deliver. Food made to be seen by me, not eaten by her mother. Diane's hand moved to her pill organizer. She carried it past my house, she said. No one answered. Because there was nothing to add. Vera turned another page. There's more. Owen Barlow was not the cabin owner. He was a property manager. He handled seasonal rentals around Cedar Lake, including several small cabins near Route 17. The Pine Cabin belonged to a man named Mr. Willard, who lived 3 states away and used it twice a year for fishing. Owen had keys, access codes, cleaning schedules. He had also been using a cabin that did not belong to him. Vera had contacted the owner with dates and photos. At first, Mr. Willard thought she was exaggerating. Then Vera sent him a picture of Owen's truck beside the cabin and a photo of Mara going inside. The owner called her 5 minutes later. Vera played the voicemail. His voice was rough and angry. I want to hear what he says when he walks in. Diane closed her eyes. I thought she might say no. A public scene would have been easy. Mara worked in fundraising. Reputation mattered to her. One video, one blast, one carefully placed truth, and her polished little world would crack fast. But Diane had spent too much of her life around church gossip to become it. She opened her eyes and said, no crowd, no video, no screaming. Vera waited. Diane lifted her chin. Just the people she lied to, in the room where she lied from. So that was the plan. Friday. Same pattern. Mara would leave our house with her canvas bag and casserole dish. Vera already knew the cabin was booked under no legal rental. Mr. Willard gave permission for us to enter. He wanted to stay on speakerphone. Diane insisted on coming. I said, you don't have to put yourself through that. She looked at me like I had missed the whole point. She put me there every weekend, she said. I might as well attend once. Quote, on Friday morning, Mara moved through our kitchen like the lie still belonged to her. She hummed while coffee brewed. She wrapped the casserole dish in foil. She checked her phone twice and smiled once when she thought I wasn't looking. I stood by the sink, holding my mug so tightly my knuckles hurt. She said, Mom's worse today. I nodded. Yeah? She had a bad night. I don't want you calling too much. She gets overwhelmed. The words landed differently when I knew Diane was already sitting in Vera Pike's Subaru with her blue pill organizer in her purse. Mara sighed and leaned against the counter. I know this has been hard on you, too. There it was again, that little charity voice. The one she used on donors. The one that made her betrayal sound like service. I said, do you need me to pack anything? She looked pleased. Just the bag. I carried her canvas bag to the car. The casserole dish sat in the passenger seat, shining under its foil like a tiny silver lie. Mara kissed me in the driveway. For a second, I let myself remember the woman I thought she was. The woman who danced barefoot in our first apartment when the heat went out. The woman who cried when my father died and held my hand through the whole funeral. Maybe some of that had been real. Maybe all of it had been real at the time. But real love does not use a sick mother as camouflage. She pulled back. Drive safe, I said. She smiled. I will. The second her car turned off our street, I drove to Diane's. Vera was already there. Diane had changed into a navy cardigan and small pearl earrings. She looked like she was going to church or court or both. On her lap was the dented green pot. I said, You brought stew? Diane looked out the window. She always said she was feeding me. That was all. We followed Route 17 past Cedar Lake, past the closed bait shop, past the turnoff most people would miss if they weren't looking for it. The cabin sat back in the pines, small and brown, with a porch that sagged a little on one side. Vera unlocked it with a code Mr. Willard had given her. Inside, the air smelled like cheap candle wax and wood dust. There were 2 mugs in the sink, a folded blanket on the couch, a wine cork in the trash. One of Mara's hair clips lay near the sink, pink plastic with a small crack along one side. Such a simple thing. Not underwear, not lipstick on a glass, not some dramatic proof from a movie. Just a hair clip. Something she had taken out because she felt comfortable. Safe. At home in someone else's stolen place. Diane picked it up with 2 fingers. She carried it to the table and placed it beside her blue pill organizer. The 2 objects sat there together. Her daughter's secret. Her mother's sickness. I put the casserole dish on the counter. Vera set her folder beside Diane's hand. I called Mr. Willard and put him on speaker. His first words were, "Is he there yet?" "Not yet," Vera said. So we waited. The quiet was awful. Every small sound felt too loud. The stew bubbling in the pot. Diane's breath. The wind moving through the pines. My phone screen going dark, lighting up again, going dark. At 4:18, Mara's car pulled in. Gravel cracked under her tires. The car door opened. Footsteps crossed the porch. The key turned. The door opened. Mara stepped inside, smiling. She held her phone in one hand and her purse in the other. Her smile lasted exactly 1 second. Her eyes moved from me to Diane, from Diane to Vera, from Vera to the casserole dish, then to the table, the hair clip, the pill organizer, the folder. Her face dropped piece by piece like a building losing power floor by floor. "What is this?" she asked. Her voice was thin. Vera answered, a documented conversation. Mara looked at me. "You followed me?" Diane's chair scraped back. "No," she said. "I finally stopped covering for you." Mara flinched. Not because she was sorry. Because Diane was not supposed to speak first. Mara's whole power had been built on everyone else being confused, polite, or alone. Now we were none of those things. She put her purse on the counter, then picked it back up like she could not decide which version of herself needed it. "Mom, you don't understand." Diane laughed once. It was not a happy sound. "I understood when I stood in the pharmacy while you told Aaron I was resting." Mara turned red. "I panicked." I said, "For 6 months?" She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw calculation move behind her eyes. The private version was coming. The soft voice. The tears. The claim that our marriage had been dead, that I had been distant, that Diane had demanded too much, that Owen had been a mistake, that she had felt trapped, that I needed to hear her side alone. I knew it because I had wanted to believe her my whole marriage. Mara took 1 step toward me. "Aaron, please, can we talk outside?" I said, "No, you don't get me alone." Her face changed again. That was the first time she looked scared. Before she could answer, tires crunched outside. A truck door slammed. Owen walked in with a grocery bag and a grin that died even faster than Mara's had. He was taller than I expected, with neat hair and a fleece jacket with a property company logo on the chest. He looked at me. At Diane. At Vera. Then he squared his shoulders like offended men do when they're trying to get ahead of shame. "Who let you in here?" he demanded. From my phone, Mr. Willard's voice came through clear and sharp. "I did." Owen went pale. Not surprised. Caught. Mr. Willard continued. "That's my cabin, Owen. You want to explain why you're bringing company into it?" Owen's mouth opened, but only air came out. Mara stared at him. "What does he mean? His cabin?" Owen glanced at her. That was when the second betrayal happened. He turned on her before the first lie had even finished collapsing. She told me her marriage was over, he said. Mara snapped. You told me the cabin was yours. You said your mother knew. Diane slowly pushed the pill organizer toward Mara. The sound of plastic against wood was tiny, but everyone heard it. Don't put me in your mouth again, Diane said. The room went still. Mara looked at the pill organizer like it had accused her. Maybe it had. Owen dropped the grocery bag on the floor. Something inside cracked. I didn't know she was using her sick mom, he said quickly. Mara rounded on him. Oh, now you didn't know? You said she was fine. I said she had a stroke, Owen. You said everyone exaggerated it. Diane's face tightened. That hit harder than Mara knew. For months, Diane had wondered if she was too much, too needy, too weak. She had apologized for medicine, for rides, for having a body that betrayed her. Now she was hearing that her own daughter had made her illness smaller when it helped, and bigger when it helped. Mara turned back to me. Her eyes finally filled. Aaron, I know this looks horrible. I said, it doesn't look horrible, it is horrible. She shook her head. You were always working. You were always tired. I felt invisible. I almost laughed again. Not because it was funny. Because she still thought pain was a coupon for cruelty. I said, so you made your recovering mother feel like a burden? Mara looked at Diane. For the first time, she seemed to understand that the affair was not the only thing on trial. Diane stood slowly. I reached to help her, but she lifted one hand. She wanted to stand on her own. She looked at Mara and said, I would have forgiven loneliness. I would have forgiven weakness. I might even have understood a mistake if you had come to me like my daughter. Mara's lips trembled. But you made me apologize for needing medicine, Diane said. You made me afraid to call my own son-in-law. You used my house like a costume you could put on every Friday. Mara covered her mouth. No one moved toward her. That was the consequence she had not planned for. Not yelling. Not violence. Not some dramatic revenge. Just a room full of people refusing to rescue her from what she had done. Vera closed the folder. The sound was final. She looked at Owen. Mr. Willard has copies of the dates and photos. Mr. Willard said from the phone, Your access is done today. I'm calling the property company after this. Owen looked like he might argue. Then he looked at Vera's folder and thought better of it. Mara whispered, Aaron. I picked up the casserole dish. For some reason, that was the thing I wanted out of there. Not the hair clip. Not the folder. The dish. The little silver-covered performance she had carried through my doorway while telling me she was feeding her mother. I handed it to her. She did not take it. So I set it on the table between us. This was never for Diane, I said. Mara cried harder. Maybe those tears were real. Maybe they were for me. Maybe they were for herself. I had no energy left to sort them. Diane took my arm. Not because she needed help walking. Because she was done. We left the cabin together. Behind us, Mara and Owen started arguing again, their voices rising over each other, each one trying to climb out by pushing the other down. Outside, the pines were dark and still. Diane breathed in slowly. I thought she would break down once we reached the car. Instead, she looked at me and said, The stew's going home with me. I nodded. That seems fair. She gave the smallest smile. It has actual chicken in it. That was Diane. Even with her heart cracked open, she could still find one dry little corner of humor and sit there. The aftermath was not loud. Owen lost access to the cabins before the weekend ended. Mr. Willard made sure of that. Mara did not come home that night. She sent texts. Long ones. Short ones. Angry ones. Sorry ones. Ones that sounded like apologies until they curved back into excuses. I did not answer most of them. When I did, I kept it simple. No private conversations without a witness. That sentence made her furious. Maybe because it was fair. Diane changed her pharmacy pickup permissions. I started taking her to appointments when she wanted me to, not because Mara had broken something I needed to replace, but because Diane deserved to ask without shame. As for my marriage, I stopped calling it complicated. Some things are only complicated while you are still trying to save the person who set the fire. The worst part was never just the affair. It was watching Mara turn trust into cover, illness into costume, silence into a place to hide. For months I thought I was being patient. I thought I was being kind. I thought love meant giving someone the benefit of the doubt until they handed me a reason not to. But sitting in that cabin, with Diane's pill organizer on the table and the green pot steaming beside it, I understood something I wish I had learned sooner. A lie does not always begin with a stranger's perfume or a locked phone. Sometimes it begins with a casserole dish. Sometimes it begins with a soft voice saying, "Don't call too much." Sometimes it begins with someone trusting your goodness so completely that they mistake it for weakness. And when the truth finally walks into the room, it does not need to shout. It just needs to sit down, open the folder, and let the person who was used as an excuse say, "I'm right here." Looking back, I don't think that day in the cabin gave me peace all at once. It gave me a clean line. Before it, I was trapped between love, doubt, and the fear of accusing someone I trusted. After it, I could finally see the whole shape of what had happened. The betrayal, the silence, the confrontation, and the choice to walk out with Diane instead of chasing another explanation all became one truth. I did not lose my life in that cabin. I got it back. If this story kept you listening, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which moment crossed the line for you: the pharmacy text, the casserole dish, or Diane's words at the cabin.